Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a topic that might seem pretty simple on the surface, but is actually structurally fascinating. We're rigorously unpacking TAMA 42, the adjective in English, characteristics, function, and classification. Whether you're gearing up for competitive teaching exams, like the Oposiciones, or you're just studying advanced syntax at the university level, mastering the adjective is absolutely crucial. It's really the key to understanding the deeper mechanics of English syntax, taking us way beyond that primary school definition of a simple describing word.
Here is our roadmap for today. 1. Nature of the adjective. 2. 4 general characteristics. 3. Major syntactic functions. 4. Adjective subclassifications. And finally, 5. Pedagogical implications. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Nature of the adjective. We're going to start by looking at a major hurdle that modern linguistics faces with this specific word class.
Traditionally, we're all taught that an adjective describes a noun, but modern linguistics treats them much more strictly than that. Foundational scholars like Quirk and Lyons point out that we actually face a massive identification issue. Basically, you simply cannot identify an adjective just by looking at it in isolation. Its morphological form, what the word literally looks like, doesn't automatically dictate its syntactic function. Without syntax, morphology is effectively blind. Just think about the phrase, the stone wall. Now, stone is morphologically a noun, right? But syntactically, in that sentence, it's modifying wall. Because of this inherent ambiguity, we desperately need a reliable, rigorous diagnostic toolkit to prove a word's actual status within the English lexicogrammatical system.
Section 2. 4 general characteristics. So, let's equip ourselves with that exact diagnostic battery right now.
This brings us to the 4 accepted features that determine an adjective's centrality. In linguistic theory, when a word checks all 4 of these specific boxes, grammarians consider it a true central adjective. If it lacks some of these features, well, it falls into the periphery, becoming a peripheral subcategory. These 4 criteria aren't just polite suggestions. They are the absolute bedrock of adjectival classification in English syntax. So let's break them down one by one.
The first 2 characteristics in our diagnostic test are purely positional. First up, central adjectives can appear in the attributive position. That just means they premodify the head of a noun phrase, sitting right between the determiner and the noun itself, like in the phrase, the tall building. Second, they have to be able to function in the predicative position. This means acting as a subject complement after a linking verb like the building is tall, or acting as an object complement, where the adjective modifies the direct object, like he painted the building white. A true central adjective effortlessly occupies both of these syntactic slots.
The final 2 features deal entirely with scale and intensity. Central adjectives have the ability to be premodified by intensifiers, like throwing the word very in front of them. And finally, they have the capacity for gradable comparison. This happens either through inflectional suffixes, like and est for shorter words, or paraphrastic comparison using more and most for multisyllabic words. Now, here's a really fascinating note on descriptive versus prescriptive linguistics. Native speakers often ignore these strict rules because of a phenomenon called semantic bleaching, where words just kind of lose their absolute meaning over time. It's exactly why you'll hear people use intensifiers with absolute adjectives, saying something is very unique. That phrase makes traditional grammarians want to pull their hair out, but hey, it's undeniably a reality of modern spoken English.
Section 3. Major syntactic functions. Now let's shift gears and explore the broader syntactical environments where these words actually live and operate within a sentence.
Consider the post-positive adjective, where the adjective directly follows the item it modifies. This often acts as a reduced relative clause. Now, with compound indefinite pronouns, we naturally place the adjective after the head, saying things like anyone intelligent. But look at the crucial semantic distinctions this placement creates in other contexts. Think about the institutionalized role of the president-elect versus the simple action in the elected president. Or consider temporary states versus permanent characteristics. Saying the stars visible tonight implies a fleeting temporary condition, whereas the visible stars implies a permanent inherent trait. The syntactic placement entirely shifts the underlying meaning. It's like a giant puzzle.
Adjectives can also step up and function as the absolute head of a noun phrase. When they're paired with a definite determiner, they operate entirely without inflection for number or case, meaning they do not take a plural s ending, which, by the way, is a massive stumbling block for English learners. We see this morphological exception all the time with plural generic classes like the innocent or the young, with nationalities like the Dutch, with abstract references such as the mystical, and in fixed set expressions we use every single day, like for good or in public. Syntactically, they're functioning exactly like nouns, all while stubbornly retaining their adjectival form.
Section 4. Adjective subclassifications. But as we hinted at earlier, not every single adjective checks all 4 boxes of our diagnostic test.
Semantically speaking, we have to contrast stative and dynamic adjectives. Most adjectives are inherently stative. They describe fixed, uncontrollable qualities like being tall or old. Because they completely lack human agency, you can't use them in a progressive aspect. You wouldn't naturally say, "he is being tall." Dynamic adjectives, however, denote qualities that are subject to direct human control, like being careful, brave, or even annoying. Because agency is involved here, dynamic adjectives can actually be used in progressive forms, like "he is being annoying," or even in direct imperative commands, like "be brave."
On the syntax side, some adjectives are highly restricted and simply cannot move freely between those central positions we talked about. For instance, denominal adjectives, which are derived from nouns, like atomic in the phrase atomic scientist, can only be used attributively. The scientist themselves isn't atomic, they study atoms. Conversely, some adjectives are predicative only. These typically reference temporary health or emotional conditions, like being afraid, alone, or asleep. You can say, "the child is asleep," but you definitely wouldn't say "the asleep child." Actually, here's a really cool historical side note. Many of these predicative-only adjectives begin with the letter A because they evolved from Old English prepositional phrases like on sleep, which eventually fused together to become the adjective asleep. How fascinating is that?
Section 5. Pedagogical implications. Okay, let's bring all this high-level linguistic theory right down to earth for the Advanced Official Language School, or EOI, classroom.
Teaching the adjective at an advanced level is seriously no small feat. As extensively documented by pedagogical experts like Michael Swan in Practical English Usage, teachers have to actively and directly address L1 interference. For Spanish native speakers, we constantly see errors in basic placement, like saying, "the car red." But at higher levels, students profoundly struggle with the strict sequencing of multiple attributive adjectives. We practically have to drill the Asas comp rule into their heads: opinion, size, age, shape, color, origin, material, purpose. That's how we naturally produce a crazy phrase like "a beautiful, small, old, round, red Italian wooden dining table." Beyond just the order, we must tackle tricky complementation patterns, correcting students who translate prepositions directly from their mother tongue, saying they are interested for something instead of interested in, and we have to constantly be on the lookout for those pesky double comparatives.
To truly help our students master these semantic nuances and syntactic restrictions, we need to move beyond traditional textbooks and really embrace corpus linguistics. By leveraging digital corpora, like the British National Corpus or the Corpus of Contemporary American English, COCA, we can encourage students to investigate real-world authentic usage patterns. Searching these massive databases exposes learners to how adjectives actually behave across varied registers. It shows them the statistical collocations of formal literature versus casual online speech. It's a total game changer that brilliantly bridges the gap between abstract grammatical theory and practical, native-like fluency.
Let's look at this quote. Mastering the adjective means moving beyond simple modification to understand how position, gradability, and inherence shape the very fabric of English expression. This absolutely crucial point, derived from foundational grammatical texts by Eckersley and Eckersley, emphasizes that adjectives are not mere linguistic decorations. They are the load-bearing pillars of descriptive syntax. Mastering them means truly understanding how their position, their gradability, and their inherent semantic weight fundamentally alter the reality of the noun they modify.
So, I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. How will understanding these deep syntactic restrictions change the way you teach or analyze what we mistakenly call a simple describing word? We so often brush off adjectives as basic vocabulary. But given the rigorous diagnostic tests, the semantic shifts based on postposition, and the strict syntactic limitations we've just explored together, how will this deeper understanding shift your perspective? Thank you so much for joining me for this academic explainer. Keep analyzing those structures beneath the surface, and I'll see you next time.